Everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, and I am continuing my build of the Rocketarium Gadfly. This should be, hopefully, it for the construction phase of the build, and there isn't really a whole lot to do, but there are a few things that need to be done right now. So, because we have the baffle in here and there's an eye hook with it, this the shock cord or whatever kind of retention system I choose to use needs to get done prior to assembling the rest of the rocket, because I'm not going to be able, well, this needs to go here like this, right? And I can't reach my hand in here to tie a knot, so this needs to be done now. Now you certainly could just thread this through the eye hook and tie a knot, but I'm actually not going to do that. I am going to use a little bit of this Kevlar thread here, not for any overwhelmingly awesome reason, but just because I want to use a little bit stronger thread just in case, since I can't, I'm never going to be able to get in here as soon as I glue it shut. So I'm going to cut myself a length of thread that's a little bit longer than the amount of tube that I have to work with. Kevlar thread tends to be hard to cut. I'm surprised that that cut as quickly and nicely as it did. So I'm just going to rebraid this. Here we go. Alright, so I'm going to start by threading this through here, and this is a short little thread. This is just to make sure that nothing fails. That would be hard to deal with. Alright, so I'm going to tie a knot here. I'm going to tie just an overhand knot. I'm going to tie it like 3 times probably. Kevlar thread is pretty stiff, so it is hard to get it as tight on the eyelet there as you would with the elastic band. Just make sure you're pulling it tight each time, probably more so than you would if this were just elastic. I think one more ought to do. Like I said, it's pretty stiff, so it is kind of hard to work with. There we go. Alright. And that's pulled tight. I'm just going to put a dab of glue onto this just to kind of set the knot. I'm not really worried about it. You can shift it around there as much as it wants. That's not going to really make much of a difference. But I am going to put that dab of glue just to set the knot part. Alright, now let's just see how far this went through, just to see how much I've actually got to work with. I want it to be a little bit shorter than the tube, and it's a little longer, and that's okay. That's not really a problem. The Kevlar thread's great, but it can hit the edge of the tube pretty hard, which could potentially cause zippering, which is the unwinding of the tube. So I would ideally want it to be a little bit short of the edge of the tube so that the elastic, which is wider and springier, is the thing that's impacting the tube if I can help it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the two together, and I'm going to tie them. Again, just an overhand knot, but I'm going to tie them together basically. There we go. That ought to do. Probably wouldn't hurt to tie it again, but I don't really think I need to. So they're basically interwoven at this point. So whatever happens to one, it's going to kind of cinch into the other one. Let's just take a peek here and see where I ended up with that knot. Yeah, it's a little far, so I think I'm going to adjust it a little bit as best I can, which is I'm going to have to untie it, but that's okay. make the knot go a little bit farther down, so maybe another like ½ inch or so, maybe even a whole inch. So I should be able to undo this without too much trouble. And if it proves to be too much trouble, I'm not terribly worried about it. It should be alright how it is. Yeah, I don't, you know, in retrospect, I mean, I can definitely undo this if I really, really wanted to, but I'm pretty content with it as is. So let's just make sure that this knot is plenty tight. The glue is, I bumped it around, so the glue is kind of spread out a little bit, which again isn't really the world's worst thing. I do need to attach all this now. So I'm going to put a bit of glue on the inside of the tube here. Like so. And then all this stuff needs to get dropped through the tube. I'm going to get some glue on it in all likelihood. That's not really a problem. It's kind of annoying, but it's not going to mess up the elastic, and it's not going to mess up the glue, you know, which is what I actually need. So we'll just kind of push all that through. If you're having trouble threading this through, you can always attach it to like a paper clip or something, let it fall through. Alright, so there we go. I'm going to try to line the spiral up here so I have less filling to do later. So there we go. Spiral is basically aligned. Tube is through. And this looks plenty strong. Alright, so I'm just going to shove that back in there. When I paint this, I believe the nose cone is a different color. I'm just going to look at the box art here quickly. Yeah, the nose cone is just supposed to be white. So I'm not going to actually attach this just quite yet because I want to be able to paint the nose cone separately from the rest of the rocket, but it should fit like that. One of the reasons that I did decide to do this the way I did is because this nose cone's really, really heavy. If you remember how much weight I had to put into it. So, you know, having the two different approach to it, two different thread approach, probably is going to help rather than hinder. And I really didn't want to have just the Kevlar smacking into this, because with this much weight, it could definitely damage it. Alright, so construction's basically done. The only thing I need to do at this point that I haven't actually done yet prior to finishing this, there's some, I'm actually going to sand that right now that I'm looking at it, because there's a little bit of glue that's left on there. There we go. I'm obviously going to do more than that, but that was like a big old blob of glue. There's some over here too that really shouldn't be there. So I'm going to sand that off before I even get to the point of filling and all that stuff. Alright, so these two fins are the ones that I did most recently. They need fillets. Everything else in this rocket I have put a fillet on at some point in the past. Pretty significant fillet for most of these. So I'm just going to apply some glue here in the seam and then smooth it out as usual. The front end of this did pop off a little bit, but it's nowhere near as bad as what happened with the first two fins. So the fillet ought to be able to take care of that without any real trouble. I might end up having to put a little bit of like a touch-up in here if I end up getting some inconsistency in the fillet, some bubbling or anything like that, because if it needs to fill in a gap, that could end up making an inconsistent fillet. I did already put fillets on the launch lug as well, for what it's worth. So this is just going to be the last two fins that I attached. to have a paper towel handy because this is assuredly going to make a glue mess based on my finger, which I would like to get off, hopefully without messing up or leaving any glue blobs any place they don't belong. Not like that. Oop. And I'm starting at the back and going front this time. I don't think it truly matters, but in this case I wanted to do it that way because the front was the part that slightly peeled off. So if I'm going to be pushing glue in any particular direction, I'd like to push it toward the part that might need a little bit of extra fill in it. Alright, so I'm going to let that sit this way. That should be it for construction. The next part is going to be getting ready for, well, the finishing process. So dealing with the fins, the balsa, filling, that kind of thing. So time consuming, but worth doing. Alright, so thanks for watching. Next video will be the finishing process. See you then.